everything from my phone, doing a polygraph exam, and just ask them to do, here you go, search everything. Just do everything you can for the kids, right?
In the dense woodlands of Nova Scotia, May 2025, a profound silence fell over one family's home. Two young children, 6-year-old Lily and her 4-year-old brother Jack, simply weren't there anymore. No sound, no sign of a struggle, nothing to suggest what had happened. They left with no shoes, no backpack, no cameras caught a fleeting glimpse, and no one saw or heard them go. The sliding door was found closed, and the scent trail for search dogs stopped abruptly at the driveway. The children's guardians appeared to be withholding something crucial, their account of events raising more questions than it answered. Why would two children disappear together so silently? Why did their mother depart so soon after? And what led to their stepfather being legally barred from seeing their baby sister? What truly unfolded inside that house on the morning of the 2nd of May? Where are the children? And more importantly, how do two adults in a home fail to hear two small children vanish? The puzzle begins with Lilly and Jack Sullivan, who lived in a secluded part of Nova Scotia with their mother, Malehya Brooks-Murray, their baby sister Meadow, and Malehya's partner, Daniel Robert Martell. Lily, the elder sibling at 6, was described by her mother as talkative, outgoing, and brimming with energy. Often dressed in pink, she shared a powerful bond with her younger brother. Jack, just 4, was the quieter of the two, but still active and playful. He was often seen playing in the kitchen in the mornings, and like many children his age, still wore nappies and his little boots. The two were inseparable, the vibrant heart of the household. Their mother, Malehya, was a member of the Sipik-Nekatik First Nation, a Mi'kmaq community in Nova Scotia. She had 3 children, Lily, Jack, and baby Meadow. Her name, correctly spelled Malehya, was often reported incorrectly in the media. At the time, Malehya was not employed and had moved away from her home community to live with Daniel in a rural, heavily wooded area near Gearlock Road. Daniel Robert Martell, 33, was not the biological father of Lily, Jack, or Meadow. He had been in a relationship with Malehya for roughly 3 years, living with her and the children in a modest, somewhat crowded mobile home enveloped by forest. He worked just 1 day a week at a local sawmill, spending most of his time at home, which he shared with his own mother and several pets, including multiple cats and a dog. Crucially, Daniel held no legal custody or guardianship rights over any of the children. As for Meadow, the youngest, she was around 1 year old. It remains unclear if Daniel was her biological father, though he referred to her as my baby girl. No paternity has ever been officially confirmed. The family home was situated off Gearlock Road in Lance, Nova Scotia, a sparsely populated area with no close neighbors, no security cameras, and only dirt tracks cutting through the dense woods. The property lacked any fencing, and the rear entrance was a sliding glass door. The overall living conditions were described by many as challenging, with limited resources and little in the way of safety infrastructure for small children. In the days leading up to the 1st of May 2025, the household appeared, on the surface, to be stable. On the afternoon of May 1st, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police confirmed Lily and Jack were seen in public with family members. This would become the last verified sighting of the children by anyone outside the immediate household. The exact time was not specified, merely noted as afternoon. From that point forward, the children left no trace. No neighbors, delivery drivers, or community members saw or heard them again. Without surveillance footage to confirm their presence, and with no scheduled appointments or digital footprint, their existence after that afternoon became a void. There was no indication from anyone outside the home that the children were still alive or present on the night of May 1st or the morning of May 2nd. The only narrative of what happened next comes from the two adults in the house, Daniel and Malehya. According to Daniel, sometime after sunrise, Lilly entered their bedroom wearing a pink shirt, and he could hear Jack playing in the kitchen. A few minutes later, an unusual quiet descended on the home. When he went to check, he found the sliding glass door at the back of the house shut and the children gone. Their boots, he noted, were also missing. Daniel stated he got in his vehicle and drove around the property, searching back trails, ditches, and wooded areas. However, a critical gap remains. It's unclear how much time passed between him noticing the children were missing and him informing Malehya. At 1:06 a.m. on May 2nd, a 911 call was placed by Malehya Brooks-Murray, reporting Lilly and Jack missing. This period, between the final sighting on May 1st and the emergency call on May 2nd, represents the most critical and mysterious part of the case. It's the moment investigators began to wonder if this was a simple case of two children wandering off, or if something far more calculated had taken place. The formal investigation began the moment that call was logged. What immediately struck investigators as unusual was that Daniel, the adult who supposedly first discovered the children were gone, was not the one who called for help. This left a troubling gap in the sequence of events. When RCMP officers arrived later that day, they launched a massive emergency search. The effort was extensive, involving ground teams, thermal drones, search dogs, and low-flying aircraft, yet it yielded nothing. There were no signs of forced entry, no physical evidence of any untoward event, and no indication of an accident. No one outside the home could verify the children had even been there that morning. The entire story rested solely on the word of two people. By May 3rd, the search expanded further into the surrounding woods, trails, and creeks. Still, not a single physical trace was found. No shoes, no clothing, no toys, not any forensic trace whatsoever. That same day, the RCMP officially designated the case a criminal investigation. The home was sealed off as a scene of critical interest, and specialists from the Major Crime Unit, forensic teams, and digital analysts were brought in to examine every inch of the property and the digital lives of the adults. Between the 4th and 6th of May, specialized divers searched nearby ponds, streams, and drainage areas. Once again, they found nothing. Not even the small backpack and boots Daniel claimed were missing. This complete absence of evidence was deeply perplexing. How could two small children disappear so completely without leaving so much as a footprint? It's a detail that makes you pause and consider, isn't it? On May 7th, after 5 fruitless days, the RCMP scaled back the ground search, stating that if the children were still in the forest, their chances of survival were extremely low. Investigators appealed to the public for any dashcam footage from the area between April 28th and May 2nd, but nothing emerged that placed Lilly or Jack anywhere after that final sighting on May 1st. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Over the next few days, investigators interviewed 35 people and processed over 180 tips, but no one aside from Daniel and Malehya could confirm seeing the children after the afternoon of May 1st. Even more disturbingly, there was no recent digital trace. No photos, no messages, no appointments. From May 12th onwards, the investigation became less public. The RCMP continued their work, but never named any persons of interest, referring to it only as a suspicious missing persons case, rather than a kidnapping. This careful wording frustrated the public and fueled speculation. Some wondered if the reluctance to use the word abduction was a deliberate strategy. Adding to the mystery, investigators partnered with satellite imaging companies, which revealed a rectangular patch of disturbed ground near the home, roughly 2 meters long, that appeared and then disappeared in a time frame coinciding with the children's vanishing. This data, while never officially confirmed as part of the case, quietly shifted the investigation's focus towards the possibility that evidence had been concealed. Still, no arrests were made. Meanwhile, in a truly baffling move, Daniel Martell allowed media crews inside the home while it was still officially sealed by investigators. He gave guided tours, pointing out the children's bedroom and the kitchen, where he claimed to have last heard Jack playing. Viewers were stunned. In most investigations of this nature, even grieving parents avoid compromising a scene of interest. Daniel's behavior stood out as unusually composed and controlled, almost performative. He never once publicly expressed raw emotion or mentioned either child by name more than once or twice. While Daniel remained in the public eye, Malehya vanished from it completely. The RCMP stated she'd been advised not to speak to the press, but her total withdrawal was seen by many as deeply concerning. In similar high-profile cases, parents often make desperate pleas through the media. In this case, the silence was deafening. Equally puzzling was the absence of an Amber Alert. The RCMP explained the case didn't meet the strict criteria, which require evidence of an abduction. Critics argued this defeats the purpose of such an alert, and the delay likely cost valuable time and early leads. Perhaps most unusual was the lack of any visible psychological support for Malehya. In these situations, police often ensure parents receive trauma counseling. There was no mention of such efforts here. Was it declined, withheld, or simply never offered? The ambiguity remains. These elements, the mixed messages, the missing digital trail, the inconsistent behavior, and the unexplained silence, combined to create a haunting sense that this was not a case of children wandering off by chance, but something that happened by design. From the very beginning, it was clear this was no ordinary missing child case. Too many things that should have been there were simply absent. No barking dogs, no cries for help, not even a dropped boot. And that silence wasn't just in the woods. It was inside the house as well. The behavior of those closest to the children only deepened the unease. There were no public pleas, no emotional outpourings, just scripted words and a strange calm. It felt as if they knew the truth, but for some reason couldn't or wouldn't say it aloud. From the moment Daniel Martell began speaking, something felt off. He was too calm. He recounted that Lily had walked into the bedroom in her pink shirt while Jack was making noise in the kitchen. And then, minutes later, silence. They were just gone. He claimed he immediately began searching the property. But what no one could ever establish was how much time truly passed before the 911 call was made by Malehya at 1:06 a.m. What was Daniel doing in that interval? Why didn't he, the adult present, call for help himself? In his interviews, his phrasing was peculiar. A recurring line stands out. They were just gone. I looked out the window, and I thought they might have wandered into the woods. It's a strangely passive observation, devoid of emotion, as if he were discussing a misplaced object, not two living children. Even more unsettling was his reluctance to use their names. He almost never referred to Lily or Jack directly, preferring they, the kids, those two. It's a subtle linguistic choice, but it suggests a psychological distance, as if he were speaking of strangers, not children he helped raise for 3 years. In one video, He referred to Jack as Jackie, a nickname no one else had ever heard used for the boy. It felt impersonal, as if he were disconnected from the children emotionally. Then came the statement that landed with more force than any other. "I'm not their father. I had no rights over them." That single sentence speaks volumes. It's a rejection of both legal responsibility and emotional connection, and perhaps his attempt to explain why he didn't call for help. Stranger still, Daniel repeatedly brought up his own trauma in interviews, hinting at a volatile relationship with Malehya and framing himself as a misunderstood victim. This might be relevant in another context, but here it felt like a diversion. What was consistently missing from all his media appearances was a single, desperate plea for the children. There was no, "Please help me find them." Instead, his focus always circled back to himself. Experts call this redirecting the narrative. The more he talks about himself, the less he has to talk about the children. The emotional void in his interviews is impossible to ignore. Everything he says sounds rehearsed and calculated. When a person loses children under such circumstances, the words they choose and those they omit can paint a revealing picture. In Daniel Martell's case, it wasn't just what he said, it was what he chose not to say. On the other side of this mystery was the near-complete absence of the children's mother, Malehya Brooks-Murray. In most cases, the mother is the emotional center, pleading for her children's return. But here, there was nothing. No interviews, no statements, no public presence at all. To this day, Malehya has never appeared publicly to speak about the disappearance of Lilly and Jack. While some accepted the police advice to remain silent as standard protocol, many others found it unnatural. Her voice and her perspective have been completely missing from the narrative, and in that silence, suspicion grew. How does one begin to decode a case where the silence feels so very intentional? On the 2nd of May 2025, it was Malehya, not Daniel, who placed a call to emergency services at 10:06 a.m. to report the children missing. While the full transcript was never made public, sources close to the case described her tone as calm and strangely composed, lacking the panic one would expect. For a mother just told her 2 young children had vanished, many anticipated distress or urgency. Instead, there was a quiet detachment. Then came her next move, one that would shape public perception entirely. Within hours, Malehya left the home she shared with Daniel, taking her youngest child, Meadow, with her. She moved in with relatives and severed all communication with him. She didn't return to the property, she didn't participate in the searches, and she didn't appear at any community vigils. Most chillingly, she never shared a photo, a plea, or even a social media post asking for help to find her children. This behavior ignited a fierce debate. Some argued she was simply following police advice, that her silence was a measure to protect herself and her surviving child. But for others, that explanation was difficult to accept. What kind of mother doesn't speak her children's names? If your children are missing, how can you stay quiet? These were the questions that echoed across Nova Scotia. Her silence became a void, quickly filled with rumors and suspicion. Some believed she knew something, but was afraid to speak. Others felt she was being protected. And then there were those who wondered if her silence stemmed not from fear, but from something else. Absence is never neutral. When someone who should be crying out for help chooses instead to retreat into silence, that silence becomes a statement of its own. To many watching this case unfold, Malehya's absence felt louder than any words she could have spoken. So, who was telling, or perhaps hiding, the truth? Neither Daniel nor Malehya ever expressed the kind of raw, aching heartbreak you would expect from parents in their situation. The division of roles between them was stark and deeply peculiar. Daniel, on one hand, embraced the media, welcoming film crews and offering carefully worded statements, as if trying to control the narrative. Malehya, meanwhile, disappeared completely. This strange dynamic, one partner too visible, the other completely invisible, only fueled public suspicion. It grew worse. Neither of them ever acknowledged personal responsibility. In every interview, they presented themselves as bystanders, as if this tragedy had simply happened around them. There were no words of regret, no, "I should have been more watchful," or "I wish I'd done something differently," not once. That absence of ownership is hard to overlook. It may be one of the most chilling aspects of this case because when two young children vanish, the silence of their guardians isn't just quiet, it's deafening. From the earliest stages, one unsettling truth kept surfacing. There was no trace of Lilly or Jack, not a footprint, not a scrap of clothing, not a single broken branch. Despite the deployment of search dogs, drones, and heat-sensing technology, the forest remained stubbornly silent, as if the children had never been there. In nearly every other missing child case, something is left behind. But here, there was nothing. There were no signs of forced entry at the home. The sliding glass door Daniel suggested the children used showed no signs of tampering. Even more troubling, no one nearby, no neighbors, no passers-by, reported seeing anything unusual. Dashcam footage from local roads showed nothing out of the ordinary. The house sits deep in a wooded area, yet there was no evidence of an intruder or an escape. Daniel described Lilly in a pink shirt and Jack in pajamas with boots and a backpack, but not a single person could confirm this. Without visual confirmation, law enforcement had no accurate descriptions to work with, a kind of uncertainty that can cost precious time. Digital forensics yielded the same frustrating emptiness. No signals from any devices, no GPS pings, no digital movement from the house. The last verified sighting of Lilly and Jack was on the afternoon of May the 1st. After that, the trail went cold. No one heard anything. No sounds of a struggle, no cries for help, not even the dogs barking. Inside the house, there was no sign of chaos, just silence. As investigators pieced together the timeline, a troubling pattern emerged. Nearly every critical detail came from a single source, Daniel Martell. Malehya, their mother, never confirmed that she saw or heard her children that morning. This means everything we think we know about their final hours rests entirely on Daniel's unverified and uncorroborated account. One of the most perplexing details involves the children's boots and backpack. Daniel stated they were wearing boots and Lilly had a backpack. Yet these items were never found. The terrain was soft and muddy, ideal for tracking footprints, and still nothing was recovered. It was highly suspicious for such items to simply disappear. Then came an unexpected lead, not from the ground, but from space. Using satellite imagery, AI analysis detected a strange, rectangular patch of disturbed Earth, roughly 2 meters long. The anomaly appeared in an area not frequented by the family, and then disappeared shortly after the children went missing. While the RCMP haven't confirmed this location as a scene of interest, the discovery suggested the possibility of a concealed site. Yet, the greatest mystery might lie inside the home itself. To this day, no third party has confirmed seeing Lilly or Jack inside the house on the morning of May 2nd. Daniel allowed a video crew to film inside, even as it was considered a sealed location by police. And what the camera captured raised more questions. The house appeared oddly clean for a home with 2 small children. There was also the question of their beds. In forensic investigations, signs of whether a bed has been slept in can be crucial, but there was no mention of such details here. It was never even confirmed the children had woken up that morning, leaving investigators to wonder if the entire story was a fabrication. The kitchen told a similar story. Daniel said Jack had been playing there, but officers noted no dishes, no spilled milk, nothing to suggest a typical morning routine with toddlers, no signs of breakfast, no activity, no mess. For a household with multiple animals, it was all too clean, too quiet. Perhaps most damning of all was the timing of the 911 call. It wasn't made until 10:06 a.m. Daniel claims he realized the children were missing shortly after sunrise, meaning there was a 3 to 4 hour delay before help was summoned. In missing child cases, the first hour is critical. Here, the response was curiously slow. What time did Malehya wake up? Did she check on her children? Her silence on these basic matters, and the lack of any communication between her and Daniel that morning, made analysts suspicious. This all adds up to a chilling possibility. This might not have been a spontaneous event. This was a controlled environment, where evidence was either never left or meticulously removed. In real missing child cases, there's chaos and desperation. In this case, there was silence, control, and an eerie sense that someone inside that house already knew the children were never coming back. From the moment Lilly and Jack were reported missing, it became clear their family unit had already collapsed. Malehya left the home on Gearlock Road with Meadow and never returned, cutting off the man she had lived with for 3 years. Her family took her in, and she vanished from public view. This sudden split divided the public. Some sympathized, believing she was following legal counsel. Others were skeptical. What kind of mother doesn't fight publicly for her missing children? Meanwhile, Daniel remained at the house, but he was isolated. Malehya's family cut ties with him completely. In an interview, Daniel admitted, "Her family, they believe I did something. I never saw them again after that." Daniel had no legal rights over any of the children. After their disappearance, Child Protective Services intervened and barred him from contacting Meadow. That action speaks volumes. Even without public accusations, authorities saw enough reason to keep him away from a toddler. Daniel, in response, told reporters, "I'm not their father, so I don't have any rights." It's a statement that's not just factual. It's distancing. It made many wonder how invested he truly was. Even Meadow's status remains unclear. He called her "my baby girl," but with no legal record confirming his paternity. Why was he barred from seeing her so easily? This ambiguity adds another layer of confusion. Daniel appears utterly alone. No one sits beside him. No one advocates for him. It's hard not to wonder if people chose to distance themselves after something they knew or suspected. Notably, the biological father of Lilly and Jack has never been mentioned. His absence left the children even more vulnerable, with no paternal figure fighting for them. Even before May 2nd, this wasn't a stable home. Malehya had distanced herself from her indigenous community to live with Daniel. The household was reportedly disconnected from normal social systems, with no confirmed school or medical records. The children seemed to exist off the grid. Neither Daniel nor Malehya retained public legal counsel, a troubling lack of the usual steps people take when under investigation. It could suggest they had no resources, or that they were both trying to lay low. After the children vanished, the family's deep fractures were exposed. The split was immediate and total. Perhaps more telling was Daniel's complete isolation and the protective order preventing him from seeing Meadow. The system was signaling that Daniel could be a risk. The distrust was mutual. Malehya's family had long disapproved of her relationship with Daniel, a man living in isolation far from her roots. After the disappearance, they welcomed her back and never spoke his name again. Strangely, throughout all the reports, there was never a mention of Lilly and Jack's biological father. His total absence created a vacuum, leaving the children with no one of legal standing to demand answers. Perhaps the most chilling part is that there was never a united front. Not once did Daniel and Malehya appear together. In most cases, parents put aside their differences. Not here. They stayed apart, acted like two people who knew it was safer not to talk, or perhaps they were waiting to see who would break first. Beyond the home, the silence echoed. There were no records of the children attending preschool or receiving regular medical care. It was as if they had been hidden from the system long before they vanished. After the initial ground searches yielded nothing, the RCMP shifted their focus to a digital and aerial strategy. If no trace could be found on land, perhaps the answers lay in the sky. In collaboration with satellite providers, they began scanning high-resolution imagery for minute changes in the terrain. The most haunting discovery was that rectangular patch of disturbed Earth. While never officially confirmed, the find marked a turning point. AI also flagged a gray SUV that drove past the home 4 times over 2 weeks, always around 7 o'clock a.m., pausing briefly before disappearing. No one involved in the case admitted to owning such a vehicle. Even more unsettling was the AI's recognition of a woman in a wide-brimmed hat, who appeared on 2 separate community cameras over 5 days. Each time, she was seen in distant, unrelated neighborhoods, once over a kilometer from the home, another time in a commercial area near a derelict shopping complex. Her identity remains a mystery, and her presence is entirely unexplained. The AI analysis didn't stop there. By feeding satellite data into specialized algorithms, the system detected subtle variations invisible to the human eye: soil displacement, deviations in vehicle paths, and shifting shadows that suggested recent digging or concealed objects. While not conclusive on their own, these details painted a picture that starkly contradicted Daniel Martell's calm narrative of 2 children simply wandering away. Simultaneously, the RCMP collected more than 180 digital submissions from the community, dashcam footage, drone visuals, and CCTV from homes and businesses. While most yielded nothing, a few sparked deeper interest. For instance, one neighbor's camera captured a faint pink blanket and a shadowy figure at a time that didn't align with Daniel's reported timeline. The police did not confirm if the blanket was linked to Lilly, but its appearance was cause for concern. There was also a troubling void in technical corroboration. Daniel said he drove around looking for the children, but no GPS data, vehicle tracking logs, or dashcam footage could support his claim. Likewise, no one could confirm what time Malehya woke up, or if she had interacted with the children that morning. Not a single message or call was exchanged between the 2 adults from sunrise until the 911 call, a delay that remains both baffling and suspicious. Thermal drone scans of the forest came up empty. Not a single heat signature suggested the presence of small children. Investigators hoped to at least rule out the children hiding, but the data offered them nothing. Even environmental factors were never publicly disclosed. No records of ambient sound levels, no confirmation of wind or fog. In remote investigations, these cues can determine if cries for help might have been heard. Finally, despite receiving extensive footage, the RCMP never revealed which clips, if any, were relevant. They never identified the car seen near the abandoned shopping plaza, nor did they clarify if the rectangular soil patch was disturbed ground or a red herring. In cases like this, where silence dominates the physical and digital landscape, sometimes what isn't found is more telling than what is. The data trail, or lack thereof, pointed to a chilling possibility. Whatever happened to Lilly and Jack, it didn't happen outside. It happened inside, and someone worked very hard to erase every single trace. The Sullivan case quickly evolved beyond a typical disappearance. The community response became a storm of suspicion, outrage, and desperate inquiry, directed not only at the family, but at law enforcement, and the growing sense that something critical was being kept in the dark. The silence from the Sipeknekatik First Nation was one of the first red flags. Lilly and Jack were of Mi'kmaq descent, yet no official representative from their indigenous community ever spoke publicly. It was suggested Malehya had distanced herself long ago by leaving to live with Daniel, a white man in rural isolation, and perhaps the case had become too sensitive internally. As the family withdrew, the public stepped forward. Volunteers organized their own searches, held candlelight vigils, and distributed flyers. Notably, Daniel and Malehya never appeared at any of these events. Their absence caused anger to fester online. The case exploded on internet forums, where amateur sleuths launched deep dives into every available detail. But the real fury was aimed at the RCMP. As days dragged on, trust in law enforcement began to erode. Why hadn't they released the coordinates of the disturbed ground found via satellite? Had they excavated it or not? Why wasn't the gray SUV or the woman in the wide-brimmed hat publicly addressed? The refusal to disclose basic information led many to believe the police were either not in control of the case or were intentionally withholding something. The absence of a unified family presence made it worse. In most missing child cases, even estranged parents come together. Not here. Daniel and Malehya remained completely separate. Their mutual silence was interpreted by many as coordination, not grief. People began asking, what are they protecting, and why isn't it the children? The tragedy of Lilly and Jack was no longer just a disappearance. It became a symbol of silence and a system that many believed had failed. In the absence of solid evidence, the case has opened the floodgates to a range of troubling theories, grounded in the eerie behavior of the adults and the unsettling silence of the scene. One of the most widely discussed theories revolves around coercive control, suggesting Malehya was not merely quiet, but trapped in an emotionally abusive relationship. After all, she left her community to live in a remote area with no support network. Some suggest her silence is not complicity, but fear. Another unsettling theory is that the children were systematically removed from public systems long before they vanished. There are no known school records, no confirmed medical files, no daycare logs. It's as if Lilly and Jack were ghosts to the state, intentionally hidden from any institutions that could have flagged signs of trouble. There's also growing suspicion that authorities may be withholding crucial information. Why so much silence? Is this standard investigative caution? Or is there something they don't want to reveal? Then comes the theory that hits hardest. The possibility that one or both of the adults know what happened. The idea of a mutual silence pact is widespread. The fact that the two never appeared together after the disappearance makes this theory feel plausible. It's not a broken family reacting in shock. It's two people pulling apart as if rehearsed. The most positive theory, offered by Daniel, was that the children simply wandered off. But this quickly began to unravel. There were no physical traces, and the sliding glass door was reportedly found closed. Another theory suggests that Lilly and Jack may have already passed away before the morning of May 2nd. No one outside of Daniel ever confirmed seeing them after the afternoon of May 1st. If he was lying, the entire timeline could have been fabricated to cover something that happened earlier. A related idea is that of an accidental death being covered up. This theory posits that a tragedy may have occurred inside the home, and the adults panicked, choosing to conceal what happened out of fear of legal consequences. The unusually clean house and the delayed 911 call lend support to this idea. A darker variation suggests that one or both parents may have intentionally harmed the children in a moment of extreme stress. People who support this theory point to the complete absence of emotional expression from both adults. Their lack of urgency and distancing language, like Daniel saying, "I'm not their father," feels disturbingly disconnected. Lastly, there's the most chilling hypothesis, that the disappearance was not spontaneous, but premeditated. The absence of any trace is almost too perfect. The AI satellite scans detecting a freshly disturbed patch of ground hint at careful planning and concealment. Some believe this might even point to more sinister possibilities, such as the children being sold into other hands. While speculative, this theory has gained traction because of how unnaturally clean this disappearance has been. When children vanish without a trace, the first instinct is to look inward. The Sullivan case echoes other tragedies that have haunted the public consciousness. In the case of JonBenét Ramsey, suspicion turned toward her parents. The ransom note was found inside the house, written with their own pen and paper. In Madeleine McCann's disappearance, her parents were initially suspected by Portuguese police of covering up an accident. Casey Anthony, mother of Kaylee, was tried for being responsible for her daughter's death, with her behavior, partying while Kaylee was missing, central to the prosecution's theory. Yet, in each of these cases, a lack of solid forensic evidence complicated the path to justice. Public reaction was fierce, with parents scrutinized for how they conformed to our expectations of grief. But what if those expectations are flawed? Trauma and shock do not follow a rule book. It's a dangerous leap from "they aren't acting right" to "they must have done it." The answer lies in facts and forensic evidence, not just in behavior that feels off. In the Sullivan case, we see these same patterns. A missing child, a timeline that doesn't hold up, and two adults whose responses divide public opinion. But as history has shown, suspicion alone doesn't equal guilt. Despite all the searching, there are still no answers, no charges, no justice. Only silence, paused in a cruel and unfinished sentence. So, we ask, what happens next? Will new evidence emerge? Or will this case fade into the archives, where only the most stubborn hearts continue digging? We can't say for sure, but what we do know is this. 2 children are gone. Not just names in a file, but innocent, vibrant, unfinished lives. Whatever the truth is, they deserve it. They deserve to be found. They deserve to be known. As the digital files gather dust and the forest keeps its secrets, we are left with the echo of 2 lost children and a silence that feels heavier each day. What does this case say to you about truth, justice, and the stories we tell ourselves in the dark? If you were the one to find the missing piece of this puzzle, what would you do? The search continues, not just in the woods of Nova Scotia, but in the hearts of all who refuse to let Lilly and Jack be forgotten. What part will you play in keeping their story alive?